You don't want to miss out on today. We're going to learn all about running for Congress. It's coming up on This Week in Evansville. Hi, I'm Johnny Kincaid, and we are joined today by Kristi Risk, who's a candidate for Congress in the 8th District. The Republican primary for this particular seat is actually more crowded than the gubernatorial contest.
It is.
And I didn't think that was going to be possible. But
I didn't either. I've been here before in a crowded field.
Mm-hmm. But this is, I love seeing a lot of people wanting to participate.
I do too.
And at the same time, I go, oh, it's so many people. And then I realize that out of that crowd, there are some really outstanding candidates. Mm-hmm. And there's more than one outstanding candidate, right? So the public has a really tough choice to make.
Yeah, they do. They have several different apples to choose from. It's just which one is the best color that you want. You want a Granny Smith? You want a John Gold? What do you want?
So our whole purpose here is to give people a chance to get to know the candidates better. Mm-hmm. And be able to make that decision based on something other than the 30-second TV commercial or the short sound clip that you might see on the nightly news, right? So let's start with family, because I know you have 2 boys who are going into the military.
I have 3.
3
boys.
Okay.
17, which we had to sign for him, but it has been his passion forever.
Wow.
Then 19, which originally he said he wasn't going to go, but when his brother went in, he decided he was going to go. And then the day that we took the 19-year-old to drop him off to MEPS to go to boot camp, my 25-year-old met with the recruiter. So He'll be going soon.
Wow.
Yeah, I think they just wanted to stay together.
So are things kind of quiet around the house?
They're very quiet. Well, I still have my little grandbaby that's over there quite frequently, and she keeps things lively. But yes, it's very quiet. The very first night, I was like, wow, I don't need, a noise fan or anything. It's just really quiet here.
Mm-hmm. Well, how old's the grandbaby?
She's 4. She's going to be 5, and she reminds me often that she has a birthday coming up.
5's a great age.
It is.
It really is. Yeah, lots of good stuff happening then. You have it's Kristi and the Chocolate Factory. Right?
It is Kristi and the Chocolate Factory. We do have a small chocolate factory. Yes, we have a family-owned business. It's growing, and we've had quite a good time. We started that right after I ran for Congress the last time. Mm-hmm. So that I kind of kept my head buried in the chocolate, per se. But I also serve as the county chair, so I've stayed in politics. Okay.
So actually, you've already mentioned you ran for Congress before.
Yes.
So, and you came up, kind of emerged during the Tea Party movement, right?
Yes.
So you put in a run in 2010.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, I didn't go seeking the Tea Party. They came after me because my values and my vision aligned with what they aligned for, which was smaller government, freedom, liberty, protecting constitutional governance, those type of things. Mm-hmm. Nothing crazy. It was everything that we were founded on as a nation.
Right. Okay. So who was the other candidate that was running then?
Larry Bucshon.
Okay.
And goodness. There was a bunch, but Steve Westell, Bud Burnett. There was a couple other, but I don't remember. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Dan, somebody. I can't remember his last name. I'm sorry.
Don't be sorry. Good to know. But it was Bucshon then who won that run. Mm-hmm. And the 8th district now, the composition of the 8th district, when I first moved to Indiana, the 8th district was the bloody 8th.
It was.
And we had, oh my gosh, now all of a sudden I'm blanking out on his name.
Ellsworth?
No, before Ellsworth.
Hostetler?
Before Hostetler.
Peeves?
See, now I'm sorry.
Okay, now you're dating me.
Sorry, but it was Frank McCloskey.
Oh, McCloskey.
Yeah, yeah, and I believe that he was in office when I first came here. Mm-hmm. Richard Murdoch ran as the Republican against him. And Murdoch drove around with this old school bus, painted red, white, and blue, and had everybody signing the
Richard was
bus.
A great candidate.
He was. And it was always a battle district. And then something snapped, and we've now become one of the most Republican conservative
R
areas
plus 19.
I mean, that's huge.
Yeah. Well, when I ran in 2010, people were always like, oh, the bloody eighth. And I said, I'm going to change that. I don't want to be the bloody eighth anymore. And that was one of the things I said frequently.
And we're not that anymore. No. And we're in a position where it's kind of like the governor's race. You look at it and you go, okay, whoever wins the primary in the Republican Party is going to be our next governor, going to be likely to be our next congressperson.
But we can't underestimate the Democrats, though.
Exactly.
Yeah, we can't do that. We've seen that recently, haven't we?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Unfortunately. So, and people tend to stay home when they think that it's a done deal. They don't need me.
Right. And I actually have talked to a couple of mayors that have lost those races who said the same thing. They were like, after the race, people said, well, I thought you had it. And they're like, no, everybody needs to vote. Every vote counts. Right.
Absolutely right. So, so you not only want to get the vote out in a big way for the primary, but you still want that big turnout. And this being a presidential election year,
this is going to be a very interesting. This is the most people that I think we've ever had running as a state whole. Precinct, delegate. I mean, in my county alone, I've never seen where we had full competitive races in all of from precinct, delegate, all the way up to commissioner. I mean, I've got tons of people running for office in our county.
Yeah. And that's happening statewide. It's really amazing when you start looking at.
Yeah. I mean, I'm happy. Some county chairs aren't happy, but I'm happy because I see it as being, the people are getting engaged and they want to be involved. And I want that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think the more people that start participating in the process, the better off we are at all levels. Right. So it's great to see that.
Yeah. We never know when we might be raising up the next governor or something in one of our counties. You don't know.
That's exactly right.
And people have good ideas. So there's lots of ideas that can come out of that.
Mm-hmm. So, what has the experience been like for you? And what have you learned from that experience of running?
From 2010 or from recently?
Well, start with 2010 and then talk about
start with 2010. So recently. In 2010, there was a lot of people that were just really frustrated. I don't think they had participated a whole lot then. And a lot of people, and the Tea Party was good for the fact that it did stir people awake and it did kind of awaken people. They got engaged, they got involved. A lot of those people stayed involved. I mean, many of the people that I know from 2010 have become precinct people. Some of them have gone on and become county chairs. I'm a county chair, or they've gone even to higher elected offices. So this time around, it's again the same type of thing. People are engaged. Now it's a new wave of people, and maybe a little more, I don't want to say Republican, but what I want to say is maybe more like the Tea Party was just frustrated because of the debt. So they were upset and they knew something had to happen because the debt just was going out of control. This time people are like, okay, there's a process to this. How do I get involved in the process? How do I become constructive? So I'm not just out there upset. I'm actually doing something that's effective.
Do you think there's, we're looking at two very distinct conservative movements, right? Between the Tea Party and the MAGA movement, basically. And of course, the Democrats are trying to turn MAGA into a dirty word.
Yes.
But where do you see the differences between how those two movements have played out?
So I think in 2010, when the Tea Party arose, I think it stirred people awake. And they said, you know what? I really don't understand the process. So I think from 2010 till now, or even maybe when Trump ran the first time, people said, okay, what do I need to do to be part of the process so that I can change the outcome? And I think that's the difference. In 2010, people were learning and they were just kind of up in arms and like, okay, we want to do something. They didn't know what. From 2010 to 2016, they researched, they learned, they educated. And then in 2016 till now, they're involved.
Yeah, the Tea Party felt like it was an outside movement, very much. Yeah, and
it was people that had maybe been busy making their careers or having their families or getting involved, and they knew something was wrong. They just didn't know how to correct it.
And it's what we're doing in all of that is we're energizing people who have always felt disenfranchised from the system. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's great to see those people.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Getting involved. How do you think Trump is going to impact this run on the 8th district? Do you think?
I'm
do you
not
see
sure
that
I don't really know that he'll have a whole lot of influence on the 8th district. It's R+19. It would be kind of a waste of his resources to get involved here.
Right.
I think if there was somebody that he felt like, oh, that person could win and they're not going to support me, he might step in or something like that. But for the most part, I haven't heard any candidate oppose him that's running in the 8th district. I've heard some of them try to, say that they have some special relationship. And I'm like, I thought the other day, my husband's like, would you take Trump's endorsement? And are you going to seek that? And I said, I don't think that's necessary. I think every one of us, I've already, as a county chair, I knew that he was going to be it. And that's on my Facebook. I knew he was going to win. But I don't think I really appreciate and like Trump, but I don't want him to be why I win. I want to win because people believe in me and they believe in what my message is. And my message is to restore hope for the 8th district, in government. So why I welcome him to come to this district, and that would be amazing. We would have a wonderful time, I'm sure. I really want to run on my own platform.
Okay, because in this big field of 8 candidates running for the same seat, we have several who are doing everything they can, basically, to embrace Trump and his followers.
They're doing it now because they're running for office, but I did it before I was running for office as a county chair because I knew he's what we needed for the nation.
But it's been, as I watched the process of people filing for this seat, I kept thinking, it's just another person who's going to try to out-conservative and out-Trump the other people running because they were really strongly set on that. And I think sometimes that trying to align yourself too heavily with an ideology or with another candidate may stifle their process of running as opposed to
possibly, and it could. But the thing is anybody can look at my website. They can go to KristiRisk.com and look at my issues, and they're going to see that my own personal values align with Trump's. It doesn't make any difference. And anybody that's a true conservative Republican should, because his issues are good.
Right.
That's not the thing that people, the people that say, oh, never Trump or whatever. It's not his issues. Nobody can ever dispute that he was by far, policy-wise, the best president we had.
It's demeanor that has gotten people so shook up.
You know what? He's from New York. So, and he embraces that, and it's okay. It's, we're from Indiana. We're not going to talk like we're from New York, right?
Right,
so
exactly.
You have to expect what you get.
Yeah. He probably, looks at people from the Midwest as they take too long to get to the point.
It takes them forever to get the decision made.
They're sugarcoating the whole thing. Yeah.
Exactly.
So you have a strategy outlined that you call your RAC strategy.
Correct.
Right? Let's go through that.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
I'll let you take the lead because.
Okay. So we want to return to the Constitution. That's our main thing. We are a constitutional nation. And if we return to the limits of Constitution, then we begin to eliminate some of those things that are out of control, like, the Department of Education, which I've talked about this before. The Department of Education is an overextended government involvement in our education process from the federal level. And I have often said we could dissolve it at the federal level and return that power to the states. We don't have to get rid of a Department of Education. We have one in Indiana. We just need to get that power back to the states. So each state needs to make those. And then I think it incentivizes states to be more competitive, right? So our young people, they really are intelligent. They're just not being challenged the way they need to be challenged. And some of that is because we have so much federal overreach and the mandates on the teachers it's out of control. So I think if we brought that back to the state and the state made a lot more of those decisions and was more involved in that, we'd see a lot more success.
All right. What's the next step in the strategy?
To administer. So we need to administer what we're doing at the federal level. We need to administer that process of being constitutional by changing the narrative, and supporting one another at the level of Congress where we can make those changes.
And then
we need to correct the things that we've done wrong at the state or at the federal level. And we need to work together with the other congressional members to correct those things and then take a stand. We have to stand hard. I mean, it's going to be tough. No matter what, it's going to be tough. We've talked about this in many circles. People have talked about Social Security. I get asked that question quite frequently. What are you going to do about Social Security? It's not going to be there. And I think one of the things we need to do is make some of those tough decisions. And so Social Security, there's a threshold, there's a level, 45, 50, you can't get rid of it, right? Because people don't have time to invest and save at a certain age demographic. But at some point, we need to probably privatize that and then allow our younger people, our younger generation to have control of that and teach them how to save, teach them how to invest, let them administer it and then say, hey, you know what you're putting in is what you're getting out. So if you don't administer this right, or if you don't take care of this right properly, then you're going to be in trouble when you get older.
And Social Security and Medicare are huge issues.
Yes.
Yeah, because so many people, it was meant to be a safety net.
Well, it wasn't always supposed to be in place either.
Right.
They were supposed to, yeah.
So,
and that is the problem with government. They put something in place and they say, oh, we'll get rid. Well, we have that in the state with the tax, we'll get rid of these things. And then they never do. They just leave it because they become, it's like a credit card.
Right.
So the federal government looks at our taxes like their credit card and they just keep spending.
Federal income tax is actually one of those things that was temporary.
Right. And so then what happens is the people don't even realize that, they're just spending our money where we have to budget, right? So we get so much money out of our paychecks. We got to pay our bills. We better make that dollar stretch. And if not, we better figure out, get another job, do something. Federal government just keeps spending money like they have the printing press or something. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's always one of my, not one, it is truly my biggest peeve with government is the fact that there are no constraints. And it used to be that people would proudly say, well, we have a rainy day fund in government, right? Indiana, we're proud of our rainy day fund.
We absolutely are, yes.
And cities. Enough
so that we gave some back, right?
Right. And now that's so unheard of. I mean, it's just a real rarity. And Indiana seems to be one of the few places where they have their head screwed on straight enough.
Which is why other states look to us for leadership. At the federal level, though, there's so much pork. And there's so much, what can I do for my district? Or what can I take back to my people? And the only purpose of that is really to keep that job, to keep that position that you're in as a congressional member or a Senate member.
Okay. Now here comes the place where I'll put you on the hot seat here. Okay. Because the purpose is to hold on to my job, hold on to power, because the longer I stay there, the more power I'm going to accumulate. How long do you want to stay in Congress?
Yeah, I've been asked that before. My husband and I have had that discussion, and I said 6-8 years, I think would be, I want to stay long enough to build influence, and to have relationships, but not stop. So a lot of times congressional members, they go there, they're in Congress 10, 12, 14 years, they get out, and then you never see them anymore. They're not involved in the party. They're not involved in the district. They don't do anything. They don't go back and meet with people. They don't try to have influence. I don't want that. I want to go and build those relationships, encourage people, and then stay involved even afterwards. But I don't want to make it a career.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I don't. I have chocolate I need to come back to.
See, Micah Beckwith and I have had that conversation a few times because Mike is very much all about having term limits.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
And because the idea, as far as I understand it, with the framers was that we were going to have citizen legislators.
Yes.
So the farmer or the chocolate maker would go to Washington for a period of time.
And keep running their business or work, keep their work on the side. Yeah.
And then go home and take care of their business again and let somebody else be the next one in.
We don't have that because right now Congress, it is a business. So they go and they build those networks for business, or that's their business. What I would like to do is, mentor up someone underneath, some young people to come up and get them involved. I've got a lot of visions for the 8th District that are outside of Washington, D.C. That's just a platform, right? And we really don't need to go there and make a bunch more laws. What we really need to do is go there and work together to take some laws off the books.
That's true.
And I actually was out there in Washington, D.C. recently and talked to a PAC group out there. And I said, what are you guys doing to move the needle the other direction? Instead of always making laws, what are you doing to help get some of those laws off the books?
So when you get there, you're one of 435. How do you see that? I guess it's how a person gets traction, how they get to move the needle when you're one of 460.
Well, and people ask me that all the time. They're like, "Oh, you're just going to go out there, just one person?" Yes. Well, one person can make a difference. We've seen that throughout our country's history, time and time again. But I think one of the most important things to do is to build a delegation with our Indiana caucus. So if all of us, we're all Republicans that are winning here in the congressional seats for Indiana, go out there together and we build a caucus. Now you've got, 8? Well, we have 9, but one is the Democrat, so you're probably not going to join our caucus.
Exactly.
But you've got 8 people. Now you're no longer 1, now you're 8. And I think that's how you start to move the needle. And actually, I expect that, Texas does that, but I would like Indiana to do it and be the example. And I would like other states to say, oh, look what Indiana's doing. Let's do that too.
And I think that's entirely possible to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's not, a lot of people come in with the pie in the sky thing, right? And they'll talk that to death. And the pie in the sky thing sounds like a great idea, but
it is just pie in the sky, and we need to stop trying to take slices of it because it doesn't work.
Right.
But the thing is, our delegations that we've had in not our delegation, but our people that have been representing us in the federal are good. We've had good candidates up there. We've had good Congress members. And I just think they never thought about it. Maybe it just never crossed anybody's mind that, hey, let's link arms and let's unite together and let's have each other's back on these tough decisions.
Yeah. Because I know, for example, our legislators from Southern Indiana work frequently as a block on things. So, it really makes sense to do that. All right. So let's get to some specifics on issues.
Okay.
All right. Start with everybody's talking about the border. Right? What do we do there? What do you think is the...
Okay, so I can answer it as a citizen or I can answer it as a candidate. If I answered it as a citizen, I'd be like, let's get all the truckers to go down there and line up along the border, block it off and put our people behind it. But in all seriousness, I'm saying that jokingly, but in seriousness, it's absolutely imperative we build the wall. It's ridiculous for us to be talking about it, to have the resources and the technology and not have that done. That needs to be done. We absolutely have to stand with Governor Abbott. He's taken the heat. He really is. He's taken the heat. And I think citizens can start making those phone calls and putting that pressure on people that aren't backing that initiative. That's one thing. We do need to streamline some of the immigration processes for people to become citizens. We haven't really researched or changed that in a long time. It's been the same for many, many years. But, we're a rule of law nation for a reason, right? And I know it sounds so inhumane and it sounds so cruel to say, deport them. And people constantly are like, but these people came over here. I get it. But most of them come to America because it's free. You come here, you get free health care, you get a debit card where you can go buy groceries and things.
You do have a better life when you move from those Central American countries to the United States.
But here's the thing. Those same people that are, putting their life on the line to come here could put their life on the line to change their governments in their countries. Yeah. And they need to take initiative in their country, look to America as an example, and change things in their country. I absolutely believe that if they're here illegally, they're here illegally. That's why it's called illegal. We have people dying American citizens who live here dying because of drugs, because of murder, because, our people are getting, our women are getting raped. We have these more abortions because women get raped by, illegals.
Mm-hmm.
We need to clean that up. It's just the long and short of it. I know it sounds inhumane. It's not inhumane. I care about people. I care deeply about people.
Right.
But I care about our people first.
Mm-hmm. How, off the subject and here a little bit, but just out of curiosity, because I know the Indiana state legislature introduces it or vets about 1,000 bills at the beginning of the year, every year.
A lot.
Right. It's huge. How does anybody read through those, all of that? So what's the number like at the federal level if we're doing that kind of volume on a local level? Do you have any ideas on how many?
Actually, I don't know how many bills that they're going, but I'm sure it's astronomical, way more than we could possibly have. But the thing is that people want to make law because they want their name attached to it. They've got to do a favor for so-and-so or whatever. And that's how so many laws, a lot of laws do get put in place just because somebody's doing a favor for someone else.
I think that's got to be brought under control. That's part of that.
Absolutely.
Getting rid of laws, number one. And number two is just quit proposing bills like crazy and then attaching the unrelated amendments onto them.
So you can have somebody like me that advocates for that, but you can't just say, oh, I'm going to go do that, because that's not how it works.
Right.
So that's why I keep saying we have to change the narrative. We have to change the narrative. So, I'm not going there to make laws. I'm going there to try and convince people that are there that those laws they're making, they need to stop making them and build that coalition. And that's the thing. So you go out there and you make relationships, right? And they build relationships to put laws in place or to write bills or to add, I'm going to add this, I'm going to do that. Why don't they go out and build relationships to say, hey, let's stop. Yeah. Let's correct it. We can do this.
It feels, just from the average person watching from the outside, it just feels so much like all anybody cares about in D.C. is power.
A lot of people do. I think there are some that don't.
There have to be. There. Oh, yeah.
But I think they've got to grow stronger. We need to grow that stronger. So I actually was talking to an organization that helps get people elected. And I said, why don't you help candidates that have your view get elected? And they said, well, we do sometimes. And I said, well, why don't you do more? You have the resources to do more. And they said, well, we'd have to probably change a third of our house to do that. And I said, then do it. Go help candidates that have your view get elected and change a third of the house so that you have the power to do what you're saying you want to do,
right? Which
is reduce and limit government. I mean, it could be done. Yeah. It's just like people just want to talk about it because it's the talking point. It's kind of like that thing where people say, oh, I want transparency. Well, you want transparency until somebody's transparent on you. And then you don't want transparency, right? You want everybody else to be transparent, but you don't want to be transparent.
But so many that you run, and so much of the narrative that you hear is about, well, the Republicans have to win on this issue or whatever. The Republicans don't have to win on that issue. The people need to win.
The people need to win.
And it drives me crazy.
I think one of the things, the Republicans have a fear of, if I do something which they deem radical, which really isn't radical, it's just freedom, right? It's conservative, it's constitutional, that they might not win their seat again. And I say this, if you do the right thing and you don't win your seat again, don't worry about it. You've done the right thing. You're going to go to bed at night and you're going to lay your head down. But I think this is what I really think. I think they would be surprised because I think they would see the people rally behind them.
Mm-hmm. All right. So trying to think how I phrase this to get it right. A person gets elected. They're a member of their political party. That party has a person in the legislature whose job is to keep you in line.
Okay.
I mean, right? I mean, that's the whip, right? The whip is going to come along and say, okay, we're all voting this way. How do you, Because I've also heard the tales of people getting called into the speaker's office
You're right. They have.
and dressed down.
Yep.
And then they get assigned a really bad seat in the House. They get taken off of committees, all those things. They punish you when you don't walk in lockstep.
Mm-hmm.
How do you
That's why it's
deal with
important
that?
to build those coalitions.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it's important to build those caucuses. For example, the Freedom Caucus. And some people say, oh, well, they've gone too far. Have they really gone too far, or are they really standing on principle? And I think that's the main thing. You got, and I'll tell you something else too. When the people elect you, that's who you're accountable to, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you go to Washington, D.C., I think the very first thing you do is you have a conversation with your leadership and you say, listen, this is who I am, and this is where I stand. Now, I know we got to work together, and you can't just say no all the time. You can't do that. You really can't. Theoretically, people like to say that, but that's just hype. You're not going to be able to do that. So you have to figure out which mountains you're going to fight for and which mountains you're going to have to just kind of, sit down and say, okay, this one's going to have to just kind of go over. And I think it's just really a point of principle. There's going to be give and take. I mean, you can't just go to Washington and say, oh, I'm just going to do this, this, and this. It doesn't work like that. But again, it goes back to building those relationships and having those conversations. And I think if, my motto is being principled, purpose-driven leadership, right? Mm-hmm. So I think if I go out there and they know at the beginning, she's principled. So, okay, so we're not going to try to buy her off. Right. I love this story. So Senator Buck in our state Senate, I love him. He and his wife are amazing because they don't get bought off. Mm-hmm. And his wife has been a supreme inspiration to me. And she said, don't ever compromise the first time, then you don't have to worry about the second time. And so I think if you start like that and people know that, then you can build those relationships and you gain respect. But people don't even try. That's the thing. They don't even try. Let me go out and try. And if it doesn't work, then I'll just come back.
So one of the cans is going to get kicked down the road probably till after the elections, and it'll be in the next Congress, will be this whole thing of funding for Ukraine and for Israel. Mm-hmm. Where do you fall in all of that?
Well, Bill, okay, this is a tough one, right? Because
it is.
Because since the inception of our country, war profiteering has been part of our society, right? It's a fabric in our society. Nobody can negate it. History shows it. And people are like, well, you can't pull that thread out because if you pull that thread out, it all unravels. But, I've sewn many times in my life, and you can pull a thread out and then you can restitch it the right way. I think there is a point where we have to stop and we have to say, okay, at what point do we take care of our country first? How do we keep pouring billions and billions of dollars? Now, listen, I am a staunch supporter of Israel. But how do you keep pouring billions and billions of dollars into a war that we could really just walk over there, get on the front line and say, don't come over here again, and they would go home, But instead, we just keep having a prolonged war. So I absolutely think we have to address it. And we're just going to have to make the tough decisions. It's not going to be pretty, but I'm telling you, in the long run, people will be happy and they'll be thankful for that.
Okay. Had to at least throw one little curveball into it.
Yeah, right. It's a tough discussion. I mean, it really is, because when you think about it, and I had this conversation with somebody right here in Vandenberg the other day, and she's got family, and my all three of my boys, Johnny, just joined the Army, all within 1 month, and you think to yourself, those are incomes, right? They have families, contractors. It's so. My mom used to say, what a tangled web we weave from first we practice to deceive. And basically in the respect of war, it is so intricate and it's so big. It's going to be one of those things that you're just going to have to take one bite at a time to get rid of it.
Okay. So one of your campaign strategies is that you are looking to engage people in the church.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah. I think the church has a lot of power. Untapped power. And so if people of faith who it interests me to hear people say, oh, Washington's so corrupt. Oh, Washington's so broken. Oh, Washington's just hopeless. And then sit there and think, but you have the power to change Washington with your vote, and you don't vote. So yes, that is one of the things that I would like to see is people of faith rise up and vote.
All right. So you'll be looking for Kristi to come to a church near you soon. And thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you taking the time out. I know, running for Congress, you've got a busy schedule going. And so to be able to get a half hour of that time has just been very, very nice. I've enjoyed the conversation.
That's funny because I said, I don't think we'll be able to talk for a half hour.
It becomes much easier, doesn't it? Yes. So, but thanks for being here. And thank you for joining us. Be sure that you subscribe, hit the like button, and share your comments on This Week in Evansville.